Hello and welcome to Live from America podcast. This is Hatem, alongside me, my good friend and birthday boy, Noam Dworman. Happy
Thank you
birthday!
very much. Thank you very much.
Uh, Good to see you, man. Long time no see. And comedian Boris Khaykin, my good friend and
Hello,
very
hello,
funny. Hello, Boris.
hello.
Our guest of honor is Brady Smith. He's an associate national political consultant with RDP Strategies, and he ran campaigns across the country, including Illinois, Iowa, Georgia, Arizona, Texas, North Carolina, and Montana. Hello, Brady. Great to have you in the show.
Thanks for having me. Happy birthday, no.
Thank you very much.
Not a problem.
So much to talk about. We're gonna talk. We haven't talked since the assassination attempt on Trump. So we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about the RGC. We're gonna talk about Elon Musk. We're gonna talk about so many things. So let's go with the assassination attempt first. Reactions, thoughts, all that. Let's go with Boris first.
Regardless of anything, I'm sure everyone said this is just how fucking impressive it is that the dude immediately went into Arnold pose and like orchestrated a perfect like direction of his own attempted assassination. Yeah, that part was pretty gnarly. See, this is the thing that I was reading on Twitter is the put options that people took on the stock. Because there's also like an SEC lawsuit going on with the stock. So I'm curious on what everyone thinks about the put options prior to the assassination attempt and the conspiracy theories going on there.
What was your immediate reaction when you saw that? Because I cannot believe that some people are just like whatever, or fuck them or stuff like that. It's crazy to me. But
Yeah, I don't know. It's surreal. It's obviously a huge deal, but it's also like I was in the back of the car while my wife was driving on Twitter and just like, oh, they shot Trump in the ear. And then I got dropped off at your show in Jersey. So that was that.
yeah, Brady, what about you? What's your reaction? How did you hear about it? And your first thoughts when you heard it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely terrible. It's truly a scary time. I heard about it. My friend Landon, who's in data and analytics for Republican campaigns across the country, texted me. He was watching it live. The second it happened, he messaged me, and I was just in shock and disbelief. In today's era, you go into the fact checking, right? There's so much out there between the disinformation and AI and trying to figure out what's real. I think is where I immediately ran to Twitter, and just trying to keep up with the latest. I mean, I think more than anything, this truly enshrines Donald Trump in the pantheon of iconic Americans alongside, Abraham Lincoln, Benjamin Franklin, Martin Luther King Jr. These iconic Americans, 2025 people that you can say, kind of transcend and represent and boil down what is America. Donald Trump is definitely in that pantheon now and will be enshrined forever, whether you like him or not. And it was truly just so shocking to see. And you're absolutely right. Conspiracy theories are immediately ran rampant and continue to run rampant as more information continues to come out. But I think the big reality is that if there was any suspicion whether Trump derangement syndrome is a real thing, this certainly confirms it.
No,
The
what's
kid
your
was a Republican, right? Or supposedly.
Registered as a Republican, donated to some Democrat causes, but just yesterday, one of his high school classmates went on and did an interview. I don't remember what network it was with, but he did an interview. It's a Hispanic high school classmate of his and said that he got into a confrontation in the hallways with the shooter over politics. And the Hispanic classmate said that he was a supporter of Trump and that the shooter came back and said, oh, well, you're Mexican. Trump hates you, so you should hate Trump. So there's some definite questions around. I mean, he definitely is registered or was registered as a Republican, but there's definitely some question over where those loyalties lie. Liz Cheney is a registered Republican too.
He's also 20. You'd hope your views evolve not towards shooting the presidential candidate, but
Yeah.
you'd hope your views are quickly evolving at that age.
No, what's your thoughts when you first saw this and
Okay, first ask a question. Brady, didn't we see these buttons as a backdrop for someone else's thing last week?
Brian Sidechek. I work with Brian Sidechek, who's been a guest on the show.
that's his studio.
This is
That's
his
his
studio. We work together out of
studio.
Scottsdale, Arizona.
Yeah, well, I like Brian. What's the question now?
When you first heard about the attempt, what was your immediate reaction to it and thoughts on it?
When I first heard it, I heard it from Coleman. He he called me. He said Trump was shot in the ear. I said, shot in the ear? You mean like within like a half an inch? That was my first. I was like, that really happened? He goes, yeah, I think so. I said, and then I tuned in. I mean, I don't know what to make of it. I mean, as I made an analogy yesterday to somebody. It's like global warming. Like, you have a terrible hurricane. You think people say, "Oh, that's global warming." Yeah, but you can have terrible hurricanes anytime. We always assume that somebody's trying to kill the president. That's why we have all that security. So it could be because the temperature is higher. It could just be somebody tried to kill the president. It looks like, how could the Secret Service be so stupid? But then the Israelis let Hamas in for hours on October 7th. So we can't think that ridiculous things don't happen. So it could be because they hired this woman from Pepsi-Cola, or it could be, I mean, just so I don't know what conclusions you can draw from this. I was impressed with Trump's reaction, as I was impressed with him at the time when he spoke from the hospital when he had COVID, when it seemed like he thought that he might be dying. And you remember I talked about this on the podcast, Hatem, I don't remember. And I was like, I'm impressed by the guy because he clearly is he's holding it together. Like he was brave, kind of, in the face of the fact that he might be dying. And he spoke at that time in a way that I thought was from the heart. And here, you don't get to see politicians in a way that you can be sure is who they really are, because they're so packaged and phony and whatever it is. And he didn't have time to construct a persona. This was him, right? So that's how we saw his medal. So hate him, love him or hate him, that was him. He's not all bad, that's for sure. That was impressive.
It's actually kind of amazing how in both directions, how little it seems to like change who he is, both in terms of like immediately just like managing this moment and like yelling fight to the crowd. And then also like everything subsequently, also on the bad side. Like, I don't know if you guys saw that phone call with RFK where he like called him, and RFK just sounds like the way that like I sound when like my dad is ranting to me or something like that, where he's just like, right. Yeah, and Trump is like doing the typical thing where he's just like repeating some shit he half heard about vaccines. That's like, they're giving these kids big doses. The doses are huge. They're too big. And like,
But
not that I respect RFK's opinion deeply on it, but at least he's like studied it enough where he's just kind of like, uh-huh, yeah.
well, that's so funny you say that, Boris, because Hatem remembers when Donald Trump Jr. got in a fight in the Comedy Cellar and got hurt, and then Trump called my father. And what you describe is exactly what my father described. My father says, well, I could tell this was a man who was used to being listened to. My father couldn't get a word in edgewise. He's just like, yes, sir, and Trump just went off on him, kind of trying to blame us at the time for the fact that Don Jr. got hit over the head with a bottle. But in the end, he didn't sue us. I got to close my door. Go ahead. I'm listening.
When I saw it, obviously, I heard it. I was driving also to the show in Jersey, and I stopped and then listened, and it's like I kind of like the first thing immediately, because you're driving in the middle of the highway. You want to be with people. So I look around. Is anybody watching this or listening to this in the radio or whatever? But it's definitely going to be, and especially the two pictures of Trump around with the Secret Service and the flag behind him and the bullet going through. These are going to be iconic pictures in American history, regardless, of Trump himself. This is going to be, if you love him or you hate him, whatever. He also kind of like the way he reacted. He was the first one to react faster than the Secret Service.
Well, he got hit because his ear was shut. They didn't understand. He knew.
No, but I'm saying going down.
Right, but I bet I wouldn't.
But I don't know if Biden would go down. Like the physical reaction to it is kind of impressive. And I did this. So this is what I'm just gonna list a couple of things that I like. Also, I like that Eric Trump was coming out and defending, especially the female Secret Service that she stayed with them for a long time and stuff like that. I did have an interview with a Secret Service agent about 3 weeks ago. No, you were not in this interview. You had something, and I did ask him specifically. I was like, when you have somebody like Trump, the size of Trump, Trump is tall, is big. How did he was the detailed for Mike Pence, and he said, yeah, Mike Pence, we can carry him, we can cover him, whatever. But somebody like Trump is very challenging. You have to have all big Secret Service to cover everything.
But they didn't have a big one.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
I mean,
yeah,
it
that's
wouldn't,
what,
wouldn't have helped. I mean, they shot him from behind and hit his ear. I mean,
yeah. But does it surprise you the different reactions? But I mean, conspiracy theories, we're kind of used to it. But you know, the reaction of some people be like, oh, whatever. The Republican made fun of Nancy Pelosi's husband getting, so we'll make fun of them. We don't care. Like this is, to me, it's so stupid. It's just like if
I
you
think
if you
both.
don't have that decency.
Well, you know what? Both are kind of silly, but it doesn't like it shouldn't be a surprise at all that there's tons of people that are perfectly happy to see Donald Trump get shot in the head. Like
No, there's difference
that's
between
not even
people.
remotely mind-boggling. Honestly, the part that I was a little bit that I also shouldn't be surprised by, but how much it pivoted to like kind of a right-wing cancel culture on Twitter that like was ready to go after those people, and it was very like the people that you might expect to be pushed more towards free speech and less were very quick to be like, they did it to us and now we're gonna do it to them. And I wonder if it's like a big cultural pivot in general, how many people are ready to just fucking
Yeah,
go
but I wasn't
after left.
only talking about regular people. I'm talking about like journalists and some big names. Like it's crazy to do that.
Dude, like a
Brady, what
Home
do you,
Depot cashier got fired.
I saw that too. Yeah, the Home Depot cashier got confronted. Republicans are really kind of in the jackbox because you don't know, right? You've been detesting cancel culture, but then, well, now this is the biggest thing to happen.
It's
Already
tough not to wield that
9/11.
power.
Right, and now you want to wield the power, and it's one in the hand, two in the bush. I mean, you don't really know which way to go, and Republicans are kind of, it's a little it's self-critical. It's a little it's not panning out well in that regard at all. I saw that Home Depot cashier get confronted and then fired by the corporation. The CEO of Home Depot is famously a very large conservative donor, so that one's not as much of a surprise. But it's going to be interesting to see if there's other fallout and more people get
there was
fired.
actually yeah, there
I
was
don't know if
actually
you've
a
ever been in
report
a Home
from
Depot,
there
but
was
they need
actually a
all the
report,
help they can get.
there was actually a report from CNN yesterday that the FBI and Homeland Security are concerned about potential violent follow-up, the kind of retaliation attacks. I don't know if that's gonna happen, but
They've also mentioned, that they're on heightened awareness or were previously on heightened awareness for potential Iranian attacks from the Ayatollah. That's the other one that is continuing out there, which is interesting given the open nature of the southern border, right? That, if anyone wants to come into the country, you can head about 3 hours south of where I'm sitting right now and get in. But yeah, there's heightened threats of, potentially from foreign nations, but also, retaliatory or copycat attacks. It's going to be a really dicey 4 months here.
I like how like they immediately released that there's threats from Iran. I mean, there's always been threats from Iran, but like right away it was released as like, hey, don't forget the real enemy, huh? Middle Eastern people look like this. This is this is them. This is them. Don't focus on anything else. But so let's talk about what if scenario. God forbid, obviously we don't wish that anybody gets shot or like it doesn't like this is the thing is like you live in a day and age is like where differences should be in a voting booth, after you win or lose, and then after that you can say whatever you want to say. But like to become like this is just very dangerous. So what if God forbid Trump was shot? What would happen? Would it go to as severe as civil war or no?
It would be a total mess. I don't think we bridle to the point of civil war, but there would be a really interesting question of what happens at this Republican National Convention that's going on right now. I mean, you're 2 days away from it. If he's no longer alive following Saturday, there's no telling who's the Republican nominee, what the fallout looks like. I mean, are there physical attacks from the right to the left? I mean, I don't think we arrived at the point of civil war, but we are certainly tearing our nation to the stitches and trying to keep it together.
Noam, what do you think? What is the what if scenario?
If he had been killed, well, the convention has rules. I mean, they would have to have an open convention. I think they don't have much latitude about how they would handle that. Who knows who they
But
would?
that open convention would be a total mess.
Yeah, it would be chaotic. That's for sure. I mean, who knows how that would turn out? But something would have to somebody would have to be nominated. So they would have to nominate someone, and so they would. As far as violence in the streets and all that, it's certainly possible. I mean, it's definitely possible that you have protests. I mean, could you make some prediction based on George Floyd? I don't think you'd see rise on that level, but there wasn't actually so many attacks on people, but there was destruction of property, and there was fighting within that. I don't think it would be worse than that. I don't think you'd see people being murdered or anything, but it's all possible.
Boris, what's the what if scenario? What do you think would
Yeah, I could
happen?
easily see some sort of retaliatory violence. There's enough nutcases out there. Yeah, it wouldn't
Well,
blow my
that's
mind
the
at
question,
all.
Boris. We don't really know if there are enough nutcases out there. I mean, there's like we always think there are, but I don't know. Maybe they're not. We don't know.
Well, they got Jay Johnson behind bars now, so
Who's
he
that?
can't do. He was on Mr. Show. They got him for being involved in January 6th.
Oh.
Do you
He's a
do you guys think that a lot of people? I'm sure you saw the interview with Biden and talking about dialing down the political rhetoric and language and stuff like. Do you think that led to anything like, or they're just trying to use it? Brady, what do you think?
I don't think that necessarily does much. I mean, I think most of what's coming out of Biden's mouth after the debate is falling on deaf ears. All of America doesn't take it seriously, doesn't think it's
No, but
uh,
the language from both sides, like you know, when they
whether that's tampering down the general environment. I mean,
yeah, the general environment, you feel angry, you feel like even when you hear the news, you feel angry, you feel challenged, you feel motivated to speak out and say something, or do something. I don't know. What do you think?
I still think that Biden's feebleness it falls on deaf ears. No one is taking that with any sincerity. No one thinks that he actually is orating this. I'm reading off a teleprompter. So I don't think that that's necessarily falling, but I do think that Trump's calls for unity, he's certainly seemingly had a little bit of a pivot here. We'll see tonight at the Republican National Convention when he accepts the nomination and speaks for the first time since the shooting on Saturday, what
I,
that
I
looks
was I
like.
was kind of when I was saying about the tone, the tone and the language. I wasn't just talking about Biden. I was giving an example of Biden. Both sides, both parties. It's you get Republican also, and Trump himself also many times said like, "Hey, let's do." So would it incite violence? The language, like when you see the debates, like they were playing John McCain and Obama before. Like when you see somebody like that, and where we got now, it's just so different. So both sides. I didn't mean just Biden.
Totally different. Yeah, no, I think that there is a shift. There's a lot of reporting saying that Trump's had, kind of a pause. I mean, I certainly would if I was, inches away from being killed. So I think there is going to be a little bit of a reshift and a tampering of the general attitude and the emotion that is strife across the country.
Boris, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't think much is going to change there, to be honest. I would not expect Trump to have like any like moment of heart where he is not, although I gotta say, I know him, you had a great clip about this that sort of predicted beforehand how the debate would go, and Trump, either because his microphone would have been cut off, but in general, kind of held back on like pushing back and insulting Biden personally, even before he got shot. Um, and obviously it worked a little bit against Biden to not be interrupted and to let him keep
What do you think
trailing
the
there.
language? The original question is the
Yeah,
language.
well, the language for starters, I think there's a weird different comparison here because I think Trump personally says a lot of nutty shit that escalates the tone, whereas Biden, I mean, personally says very little that makes sense in general at this point. But there's another whole, uniparty behind Biden that does, So there's almost more plausible deniability because you can't say Biden said this, but then you've got people who matter less, like Maxine Waters or like particular
Yeah,
journalists.
I wasn't talking
saying
specifically
shit.
about Biden or Trump. I'm talking about the language in general.
Yeah,
From
I don't think any of it's going to
side.
change.
Like if
I don't
somebody
think
call Hitler, you call him Hitler, or somebody say like,
well,
hey,
that guy's his vice president now, so that's different. But no, I'm talking about Vance. He privately apparently called him Hitler. But no, I don't expect any of that to change. I think Trump, especially once there's a second debate or whatever opportunity there is probably eventually going to say some fucking nasty shit. And I think that for sure the rest of the media is going to, they've doubled down. Like I already just saw articles that was just like Trump is even darker and more villainous than before. And it's like, wasn't he literally Hitler before? He's more darker and villainous than Hitler now. Like nobody seems to learn their lessons with any of this kind of stuff. And I'm with Noam that like, yeah, I don't know how many nutty people there are, but I also don't know what the connection is, like how tenuous it is between anything that Trump says or the media says and the random acts of violence that may or may not happen. It's hard to predict any. There's just too many variables with that kind of stuff.
no, what do you think? The language of the campaigns for the past maybe, 6, 8 years, did it lead to this?
I thought I already answered that.
No.
I said that you can't know. It's like global warming. When you have a bad hurricane, it could be that's because of global warming, or it could just be we normally have hurricanes. The entire assumption of the Secret Service and the security measures that they go through, even at the most tranquil times in our history, is that there is always somebody out there looking to kill a president. That is the assumption we go on. So therefore, when somebody does kill a president at any particular time it happens, you cannot conclude it was because of the climate. Because if you do that, you'd have to say that if somebody had killed the president in tranquil, I mean, it doesn't really make sense. You can only begin to draw conclusions like that if you see numerous incidents, and then a logical mind would say, well, this can't be coincidence. It's happening too much. So if we have 20 terrible hurricanes in one year, then it becomes very difficult to say it's not global warming. But
that's
I don't know. I mean, it does seem like things have been hot. On the other hand, did I read that this guy seemed to like not have any particular thing against Trump? I read somewhere on Twitter that there was some evidence that could be interpreted that he was just looking to kill a president, and maybe that could still be because of the hot climate. Nobody knows. I just don't know. I think Jussie Smollett, I'm pretty sure Jussie Smollett was assaulted though.
Yeah, well, that's a fact. Well, I agree with you. Actually, an interesting number is now 1 on 8 of the presidents had either been assassinated or had an assassination attempt on them.
I just want to say this. And if Joe Biden had been shot in the ear, I think Trump would be merciless. I think Trump would be making fun of the fact that he was grazed, but he was trying to play it up. I mean, listen, I don't like Trump. I don't mind his policies, but when he was making fun of Paul Pelosi, is that his name? Nancy Pelosi's husband? That was just unforgivable to me. Like, the guy got hammered in the head. He hurt much worse. And was probably much more terrified, objectively was much more terrified and traumatized by that hammer attack than Trump was by the bullet which grazed his ear, that he never had even the time to realize his life was threatened. It was over before he even knew what happened. And yet Trump, and no less deadly a threat, a hammer to the head. So, I think Trump's a piece of shit on these matters, and it's hard to be sympathetic to him in a certain way in my heart, because I saw how he treated someone who went through a similar thing.
Well, now Trump does have a momentum. It's how he's gonna react to it. If he managed to,
Do
if
you
his
guys agree?
speech.
You guys agree with what I just said?
I will disagree with one part, and that is that there were objectively funnier specifics in the Paul Pelosi incident. It just shouldn't have been Trump to be the one to speak to those specifics. But there were things about it that, if you want to be callous on Twitter, there are some parts of it that are kind of funny. It just shouldn't be Trump who's commenting on those things.
Yeah,
Well,
I agree
yeah,
with Boris for sure. I think that there's definitely a distinction there, and there were some parts that were objectively weird and funny, you know, in the underwear. But you're totally right that the president at the time, you know, Trump should not be the guy who's coming out and saying that. That's a time to sit on your hands and let him go numb.
I
I,
should be saying that.
yeah, I mean, there were some. I didn't believe them anyway. Any of them, to my credit, the early facts that seemed conspiratorial, I dismissed them out of hand. I thought they were ridiculous on their face. But I mean, he's in his underwear because he's home alone late. And of course, if you want to just remove these scenarios from reality, like the child who was eaten by an alligator at Disney, yeah, I get it. They're absurd, so they're funny. But there was a real man who was in the hospital at that time with his brain being operated, you know, or some operated on in some way, and the president made fun of it. There's just no. So all I'm saying is that what Paul Pelosi went through psychologically was worse than what Trump went through.
Yeah, I agree with you, Noam. And also, you know, you can see funny in any situation, and that's what comedians do, because they're the first one to see funny, and even when it's you're not supposed to talk about it, but that's what comedians do, not leaders, you know. So I agree with you 100%. So, you know, again, Trump has the momentum. We see what he's going to say in his speech. There is moments in the campaign that I've seen stuff, you know, that if they just don't do anything right now, I think, like when his granddaughter was talking about him, you know, his reaction to it, you know, I don't know if you saw that. Trump's granddaughter
I haven't watched any of the convention.
yeah, I just watched the highlights, you know. Well, Brady's going to give us a run out of the convention now, but you know, these moments, if his speech today comes as a leader, he can win. But if it comes out like you know, we'll see. So, but do you guys what do you think of that? Brady.
Well, I think, you know, the big thing is, you know, going forward, Trump has certainly galvanized a certain portion of the country, and that this has reached into these types of folks who aren't necessarily like your high propensity voters who are going to be showing up in every election, right? This is you're seeing folks talk about this who have never voted, who show up rarely, if ever. So it's going to be really curious to see, you know, does this motivate people to turn out for Trump? You're seeing, you know, you had Amber Rose spoke at the RNC convention,
That's the only
right?
moment that I watched. I didn't know that's a convention.
Can you imagine, right? A
I saw
George
Amber
W.
Rose. I
Bush
was like,
takes
I
the
love
stage and
her.
Amber Rose is there, right? But it's interesting, right? Does that cause those people to turn out for Trump? And if so, I mean, the results probably an
I mean,
overwhelming.
538 surprisingly had a, you know, did you see the article yesterday saying that Biden is leading right now? It's very interesting. But before we talk about
Is this
the
Biden leading in electoral college polls?
It's a national poll.
national poll.
Yeah, national polls mean nothing.
No, I know, but it's surprising that 538 comes out now saying that with everybody else saying like Trump is leading. It was
Yes,
kind
but you have to be has to be apples to apples. Trump is leading because if the election were held today, he would win. The popular vote is not the way presidents are elected. And I don't know that Trump is losing in the popular vote either, but one poll is not contradictory to the other. It depends what the poll is saying.
I agree with you totally, Noam. And I think the other thing that's important to note is, you know, this shooting took place in Pennsylvania, a swing state that is going to decide the fate of this election, right? I mean, to hit 270 electoral votes, if you're Trump and the Republicans, right, you've got to bring home Georgia and Arizona, but then you've got to pick up one of Michigan, Wisconsin, or Pennsylvania, and this took place in that swing state of Pennsylvania too.
Well, the 538 model says Biden will win. That's what it says.
Win the presidency?
Yeah.
Well, that's
It just
weird.
came out yesterday. Okay, so let's before we talk about the convention, Elon Musk, three things. One, he immediately came out after, you know, and he does that a lot. He reacted right away and he was like, he totally with Trump now, and he is also uh was it 45 million a month? Something like that.
$45 million a month is
Yeah, 45
not
mil.
just Elon. That's in conjunction with a couple other people, a couple buddies. But yeah, they're doing $45 million a month in outside spending pro-Trump in key swing states. Not an
Well, we saw
insignificant.
Bloomberg putting all his money in Florida and nothing happened, but we'll see. But
So
also,
I'm looking at the 538 thing. This is very interesting. She got somebody from 538 on the show.
yeah,
Does
we'll
it
do.
make any sense that it's showing here that Trump was winning on July 3rd and that after this shooting, he's losing? He's losing. They say the model says 52-48. 52 out of 100 times Biden would win. 48 out of 100 Trump would win. So I don't know I don't know what kind of margin of error there is. So it's basically a dead heat, but it's weird.
Yeah, that's why I
It,
said it was very interesting that
almost it's weird almost to the point of not being plausible that Trump would have gone down over the last week after the shooting. It just I don't know.
yeah,
Doesn't
it's strange model. That's why when it came yesterday, I was like, what? Yeah, we'll get somebody for 538. You should check our episode with Nate Silver. It's pretty cool. Okay, so again, Elon Musk, donating money, endorsing Trump, and moving all his business, and in fact, it's from California because he said he cannot take it anymore to Texas. Brady, let's go with you, and then Boris, and then Noam.
Yeah, I mean, Elon's claims, the catalyst that caused him to make this move for both X and SpaceX to Texas is this new bill that was just signed by California Governor Gavin Newsom that, basically removes the requirement for public schools to inform parents on pronouns or how a child chooses to identify in the school, and just said enough is enough. I mean, Elon tweeted his endorsement of Trump. I think it was within the hour.
Yeah.
I'm sure, but I'm pretty sure it was right away. He's been making big moves this week, and then $45 million a month. I mean, that's a ton of money when it comes to outside spending. I mean, that is likely to be one of the largest outside spending groups in this entire election now. So not insignificant at all. And then bolster that with his following, of loyal supporters of Elon, right? I mean, there's a contingent there that doesn't vote regularly too. And does Elon's involvement motivate them to turn out for Trump? I think it certainly, bolsters Trump both in these swing states and kind of everywhere. But that also rises all tides, right? If you get all these new people who are coming in and voting for Republicans at the top of the ticket, studies show they're very likely to vote for Republicans down the ticket. So this likely, also helps, Republicans in their mission to, maintain control of the House and retake the Senate as well.
Boris, what do you think? And also, I mentioned before, Bloomberg put a lot of money in Florida, and we didn't see any effect of it.
I mean, I think regardless, I find it hard to predict a scenario where Trump doesn't win the election. So it's just such a mess going on right now. I don't know, like whether they end up pulling Biden or not. It just, and in general, like there's just not a clear message I'm getting in terms of like the Democratic media or like I just don't see between the shoot even prior to the shooting once that happened and until they began all these struggles, and the messaging is like I feel like I'm being bombarded with these like very like disjointed themes, and now like the Agenda 2025 seems to be a big one that I'm seeing a lot on like social media. And so far like half the shit that I've seen where it's like they want to make it so that what did I read? The like a family is only a working father with a stay-at-home mom. Read it. It's page 451. And then I go to read the page and it's actually nothing on there that like really resembles the thing that's on the post. And it's just very like it just feels like everything's being thrown at me messaging wise where like Elon Musk or not, I don't know. I don't know what kind of scenario the Democrats would have to pull to like I mean, I get the polls are still close, but I don't know. It doesn't even feel competitive at this point.
No, what
I
do you
have
think?
this. Well, these are the scenarios where the Democrats can win.
Yeah, please.
The scenarios are: there's another debate in September, and Biden does great. I think that would be a game changer for Biden if he could. I don't know. I don't know if that's even possible that he could do great, but that's number one. Number two would be something like what we saw when Sarah Palin first hit the national scene. You remember? She had zero name recognition, and overnight she was a sensation. Now, of course, she didn't have the substance to sustain that, but that's not really my point. My point is that if there's some Democrat out there who has that charisma and talent to hit the national scene as a replacement, I don't even know Gretchen Whitmer. I hear her name. I couldn't pick her out of a lineup. I don't know. But if there's someone on the Democratic bench like that, I believe they could enter the race very late and still win, because there is a generic standoff in the country, Democrat versus Republican, which is basically 50-50. It doesn't really matter who the candidates are. Basically 100% of the electorate believes that Biden is not compos mentis, and 49% are still ready to vote for him. So I think, like, if a new Democrat came along who was moderate, who didn't also lose votes, I think they could win.
Well, I think, no, that's a good point, but there's a glaring issue in the middle of that, which is named Kamala Harris, right? I mean, you're a
I think
party.
I think they have to pass over her.
Well, you're a party that's entirely built on DEI and, selecting people based on race. I mean, Biden specifically chose Ketanji Brown Jackson. He said, I'm going to choose a black woman. He said, I'm going to choose a woman as my vice president. Just yesterday, I don't know if you saw this, he had another gap last night where he called Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin. He referred to him as the black guy.
And then he said,
let me tell you what Donald Trump would say in that situation. But Mr. President, your whole party is about race politics. Everything you said, you especially picked somebody for being black and being a woman. Are you really going to pass over Kamala Harris? And President Trump will be, don't worry about it. Nobody really cares. Everybody knows she's awful. Just do what you got to do. In 2 weeks, they'll forget about it. That's true.
Donald Trump to say that. And the other
right.
question,
well, we don't know. People like. There are people like David Axelrod and James Carville and Barack Obama even, who I believe behind the scenes are quite sober, and they want to win. And unless they think that Kamala can win, they will come up with a way to pass over her. That's what I believe.
I definitely that, you're looking for any opportunity to. I agree. But, does that piss off 5% of black women in Philadelphia or Wayne County?
Who cares? They only care about the swing states.
No, those are both swing states. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania is a swing state. Wayne County, Michigan, that's Detroit. I mean, those are black women vote with the Democratic Party. 97% of black women, when they turn out, vote for.
Trump lost Pennsylvania last eleation?
Last election, yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Okay, so you're right.
I appreciate your correction there, Boris. Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, I would say that I don't think it's real. I don't think black women are gonna care. I mean, they like I said, they'll forget about it because they all know that she's awful, and you might lose some, but you're going to get a lot of people who can't stomach Trump, but just cannot vote for Biden right now. There's a lot of people like that.
I agree with Noam.
A lot of people, or just won't come out and vote at all. But remember the Sarah Palin thing? Maybe you're too young. I mean, when Sarah Palin first hit the scene, I mean, it was huge. That's what they need. But again, I don't know if they have somebody like that.
Yeah. The two things. One, regarding the debate, I don't know if Trump would debate again, because why would he? The second thing is like
he's committed to.
Yeah, the second thing is like if there is somebody who's like up and coming for her personal, career, would you take a chance and go now, or wait this 4 years and take it out?
I'm gonna have to go in a second. I just want to say that this issue of somebody not debating always comes up. So far as I understand American history, except for during COVID, nobody's ever actually backed out of a debate. it has the appearance of chickening out, and Trump would have no argument that comes to the top of my head as to why he would refuse to, why he could simultaneously say Biden is awful, and I'm not going to debate him. I don't really see.
He did do it for the primaries.
Primaries are not the same. He didn't need to debate those guys. He didn't back out. He never agreed to debate. He didn't have to.
Before Noam goes, because I know he'd have to go at 45 in a couple of minutes. I want to ask Brady. Brady, you're a younger side. You know, most of the people say that the new generation, young generation, all going for, you know, mostly for Democrats, or, you know, all this things. Why did you choose to become a Republican? Why you support Trump? Yeah, I assume you support Trump, right?
Yeah, I do. I've been a Republican, my entire life until I, kind of entered politics. I got involved in politics at, age 15, going door to door, knocking and advocating for Republicans. At the end of the day, I'm a small government Republican. I like keeping the government out of the people's lives, maintaining individual liberties, and keeping costs low for the everyday American. And at the end of the day, that's what we had, at least compared to now, with the Biden economy being where it is. I mean, I'm a big economic focused. My undergraduate degrees in economics. That's fiscal policy is my main focus as far as my personal beliefs go, and this contrast couldn't be more stark.
Norm, any final thoughts before you go about the?
Yeah. No, it's just amazing time in history, right? We've never seen anything like this. I don't know.
Any thoughts on the VP? I know pick doesn't really matter, but your thoughts on JD Vance?
I don't know enough about him. There is this.
Well, he likes your people a lot.
Yeah, there is this look of him cynically changing sides, but I'm so mistrustful of the media and their ability to explain somebody's change of mind or whatever it is in a fair way. I'm not ready to say that it was cynical. I just don't know. I know that prior to him supporting MAGA, he was highly regarded by liberal people, and he has an impressive resume, and people thought Hillbilly Elegy was a deep and important work, and everybody knew that his heart bled for the white working class, even though he was critical of them, like Michael Moore. And I don't know, but that's the only knock on him, right? I mean, other than that, all right, he might be a little bit more like populist on economics. I don't know. Who knows? I'm becoming like I don't know anything. Ask me what 2 + 2 is. I'm like, yeah, they say it's 4.
I think
So you're a liberal now.
Not a liberal. It's just like there's been no ideology, no school of thought in my lifetime on any subject which has panned out. There's been no expert of any field in any direction which has been right on a predictable basis about anything on any subject in my lifetime. There's odds. Some people are more right about this than others, but in general, you kind of play, I'm disposed to believe certain things, but I'm very keenly aware, as with the wisdom of age, that things are not what they appear, and what was true yesterday may not be true tomorrow, and a certain economic theory might work in this context, but certain other factors may have changed so much that it doesn't work in that context. And there's magic rates of taxation, and who the fuck knows? Nobody knows. I do believe in certain basic things, that less government is generally better. I believe that weakness on the world stage is provocative, that bullies smell weakness. I mean, I have certain beliefs, but even that is not 100% true all the time. Anyway, I got to go.
Let me ask you something quick. We saw Haley, DeSantis, all of them, giving Trump speeches and endorsement and stuff like that. Do you think if it was the opposite, if Trump did not win the nominee, would he be the one giving them all this.
I don't believe he would. No.
Yeah, of course. Brady, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I'm not sure that that would pan out that way. I don't think
And
there'd
it
be.
doesn't say anything about this guy. It doesn't say to you anything about this guy.
I think he, values loyalty, and I think seeing that, kind of forcing everyone to come to the convention and bend the knee and,
Kiss the ring.
pay their respects says a lot.
I want to say this about Trump before I go. I do have to go. The most interesting thing about him to me is that he could be, with all his strengths, the dumb things that he's done, you can count them on one hand. The few things that he said, his behavior on January 6th, denying the election. And I guess you can't have one without the other. He might not have all his strengths if he didn't have those excesses. But my God, just imagine how popular he'd be today if he had simply conceded the election on, January 5th. Like, just as a gentleman, like, just imagine how pretty he'd be sitting right now if they had nothing on him. There's like no threat to democracy anymore because I was president for 4 years and I conceded. Of course I checked into the fraud, but then I conceded. Like he's so. I want to say he's self-destructive, but I can't say that because he's favored to win the presidency. He overcomes even that. But there's just something where he says certain things and does certain things. It's such an interesting. Somebody needs to write that huge biography. He's such an interesting figure, right? He's so interesting. All right, I got to go.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Boris, what do you think of the question? Because I think it's a brilliant question that Trump would not have been in Haley's or DeSantis' seat. And that shows you something about leadership a little bit.
No, I don't think he would come at all.
Yeah.
He would move on with his life to doing other ththings. And there's no way. Yeah. I mean, I don't see what it would do for his ego or for him in general.
Brady,
I think Hatem, I think the big thing is too, you got to remember, like these people are coming because they want something, right? No politics.
Of course, yeah.
Self-serving, right? Nikki Haley doesn't want to go sit around and twiddle her thumbs for 4 years. She doesn't want to go back to the UN. She wants to be Secretary of State. That's the only thing to cross off the list.
But also,
Ron DeSantis, he's term limited out of the governor's mansion in 2 years. And maybe Attorney General, like hoping and praying, but there's no way to get there without coming and bending the knee.
No, it's true. It's two things. It's one, things that are gonna benefit them. They want to stay in the scene, but also the big picture. They want their party. They want the values that they believe in. I'm not saying that's what they're doing, but the big picture should be the values of the Republican Party that they believe in. That's what they're endorsing, so whoever's going to represent that. So if Trump really believed in the values of the Republican Party, he should have support whoever, that's my point, but he would not have, but anyway, I mean, let's talk about the convention. Can you give us like the like 5 top things that you think it's interesting that happened in the convention? Mine obviously was Amber Rose, but other than that,
mine as well. That's 1, 2, and 3 for me, actually. But I think one of the biggest takeaways, right? Trump called for unity after the assassination attempt. He goes in, he's got Nikki Haley going up and giving her big speech, arguably one of the biggest, detesters. Ron DeSantis gives his speech. So it's a showing of GOP unity.
Who's best speech? If somebody doesn't watch and right now and they ask you to pick one speech for them to watch.
I would. I was really impressed with Marco Rubio's
I was
speech.
going to say that Rubio. Yeah,
I think Marco Rubio really knocked it out of the park and solidified himself. Especially, he hasn't had a lot of hang around time in MAGA world or anything like that. This little, is he going to be VP? The RNC speech, this sprinkled him with some Trump pixie dust that I think is going to, keep him fresh in this new Republican Party that, the 2016 Republican Party, rejected him as nominee. But I think that this really shows, the Republican Party is pretty united right now, arguably more united than it's been in 8-12 years. And it's such a stark contrast on the other side. And as we get ready for the DNC here in just a couple weeks, I mean, this is as disorganized and it's going to be as bad of a DNC since 1968, which was also ironically in Chicago.
Oh. So what's the top things, and Boris and I can comment on it, the top 5 things that you think take away?
Totally. I would say your GOP unity is number one. Number
Let's
two,
take one by one. Boris, what do you think of the?
Of GOP. I didn't watch it,
Do
but
you
I did
feel
see that clip of what's his name? Was he yelling at Mike Johnson or McCarthy?
McCarthy.
Matt Gaetz, right? He was
Yep,
yelling at
Matt
McCarthy.
Gaetz.
Matt Gaetz?
Matt Gaetz, yeah. I mean that's the only thing I saw out of context. So I don't know how unified everybody was otherwise. It sounds like they were pretty unified. I didn't watch it, but I saw that clip and it just seems like Matt Gaetz seems like an annoying dude.
The national committeeman from Illinois, Richard Porter, there's another clip where he calls out Matt Gaetz in that interaction. He calls Matt Gaetz, I think he says, "You're being an asshole, just stop being an asshole." So
Yeah.
that is an interesting little wrinkle for sure. That was an interesting interaction.
I mean, I guess, if I was to say what's wrong with that guy, I would sound naive because I'm sure a lot of people have watched him be a jackass for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems like bizarre and unprovoked behavior.
I think Unity also like came in, right after the shooting, an attempt assassination. It's a big deal. It's a horrible event, So kind of like I remember how after 9/11 everybody came together. It's just like when there's horrible events, like Unity is easier. But once things settle down, do you feel like this is going to be the same thing? Well, we'll see. What's the second take from the?
The second take I would say is, the GOP is doing a really good job highlighting a bunch of Biden failures, right? They're, in between the politicians, they're bringing out, a
That's
mom
kind
who
of easy though.
her son to fentanyl. Well, I know, sure, right, but they're doing a good job, refreshing that in every American's memory of, hey, folks who had to, suffered because of the Afghanistan pullout. A mom that lost her son to fentanyl, someone who was, raped or murdered from, an illegal immigrant who crossed the border. They're bringing out these people that, were directly affected by failures of the Biden presidency, and I think, refreshing that in the American memory, and that's a big takeaway.
Do you have any others?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that this was a display of the Republican bench, right? Between, we've kind of hit the heavy hitters, Marco Rubio, Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis, but there's been some others out there, and this has been the introduction for a lot of these people to the national audience, right? Brian Mast, the congressman from Florida, had a great speech. Brenna Byrd, the attorney general from Iowa, had a great speech. It's really kind of a demonstration of the Republican bench of all these potential viable options for governorships or Senate seats or potentially the presidency in 4 years. Whereas the Dems, there's so much chaos on their side that there's a big question mark around who's going to fill the power vacuum. And I think the Republicans are just saying, hey, we've got a lot of options.
Did
Actually,
Doug
that's
Burgum
a
speak?
What's that,
Say
boy?
again.
Did Doug Burgum speak?
Doug Burgum did give a speech, I believe, last night.
Yeah. I think that's a great point because there's a lot of names like them or not like them, but they're there, and they well known and they're more have a international stage and national stage now. People know who they are, unlike the Democratic Party, which like who you don't want. It's so I think that's a great. The Republican right now do have a bench. Some of them, I don't know about Nikki Haley's future, but I know somebody like Marco Rubio can get, stuff like that. What other points that you have as well?
Yeah, I would say there's an interesting contrast here to 2016 when Donald Trump was first nominated with the Republican nomination to the presidency, and really looking at it's impressive how lockstep he has that entire room, right? Everyone's on board. There's not dissent in the room. There's not people looking to cause chaos or trouble at the convention from within the House. Juxtapose that to 2016 when he secured the nomination. It was a really chaotic convention. There was a lot of questions of people trying to, pull rules motions and make, parliamentary procedure moves to try to gamesmanship the convention. There's none of that this time. He's got everyone, the party, the physical delegates in the room are actually with him. And I think that's very notable.
I think also, again, the shooting had a lot to do with it. Who's gonna be like a dick now and just show us like, oh, I mean, yeah, Mike Pence is the only one who said something and it wasn't there.
Yeah. Mike Pence
Right?
not in attendance, Liz Cheney not in attendance.
Yeah.
Adam Kinzinger's not hanging around, right? But that's also interesting, right? Because in previous conventions, those people, even if there were, internal rifts, you still go. But I do think that's a takeaway from this convention that, the dissenters from within the Republican Party aren't even trying to make their voice heard. They realize that they've lost.
Yeah. So last thing, Boris, like, and Brady, prediction and the overall, you know, now Biden yesterday had COVID, he's COVID positive, so he is in isolation, I think, for a couple of days. So maybe that's a chance. I don't know what's the plan is. But what's prediction? What do you think Boris, if you were leading the campaign for both parties, what would you do? And what's your final prediction? And then we'll go with Brady and call it out.
Well, what I would do is lose for starters because I prefer the like I asked because I liked Doug Burgum, but he was obviously not going to be the choice because he's just not. He's quiet and boring. And like for the Democrats, I liked Klobuchar. You know what I mean? Like I like the people that just don't raise the kind of fuss that end up being compelling for the parties. I think Trump's gonna end up elected. If I were somebody, yeah, I would emotionally start preparing for that if you're the type of person that needs to emotionally prepare for that. I just don't see it. I don't see Biden getting replaced at this point with anybody who could. I definitely don't see him coming back during the second debate because everything he's done since, like even when he's been praised, has just been filled with insane stuff. The quotes, the black man quote from the other day, and there's so many more. It's just and there's no. I don't see over the next several months. He's probably going to get worse, not better. So. I just don't see how that goes. And then the fact that there's just so much inter party turmoil in terms of what to do about him, and he's fighting it. And now they're like leaking the private conversations where they tried to get him to step down because he wouldn't concede to it. And so now they're going that way. It's just, it feels like there's not a smooth off ramp here.
If he
with the
steps down, and
Democrats.
let's say Kamala would you think she have a chance?
No way. No. Kamala is very unlikable. I think Kamala would get destroyed in debates with JD Vance, who somebody had a very funny comment because his wife is Indian. So they're like Trump playing 4D chess by picking a guy who's practiced in bickering with an Indian woman, which is very funny. But yeah, no, definitely not Kamala. I mean, in terms of debate, maybe Newsom, but he doesn't appeal to everybody else outside of California either, really. And he's just psychotic on his face in the way that Trump is, in a way that is just not gonna bring out the liberals that just want a sigh of relief from all this. So I don't see Newsom doing that. I don't see them putting Buttigieg back up to do any of that. I don't know what an option is. Maybe there's some kind of sleeper out there that, like Noam said, will pull a Sarah Palin, but it didn't work for Sarah Palin, so they better find somebody who's, got the immediate appeal of Sarah Palin, but a very different IQ level.
I always say Tulsi would do it. Tulsi would win.
But they've shunned her. Hillary
Yeah,
called her a Russian asset.
Yeah,
so like I don't know what they're supposed to do.
Yeah,
there.
that's the thing. But she, even if she run, I think it's if you have a Ross Perot now or independent, not RFK, but somebody.
Right. Well, don't forget RFK's eating up like 9%, right?
Yeah. Brady, what you advise if you're a political consultant for both? I know it's you don't want to do it, but if you close yourself and become a Democrat for a second, what do you think?
I'll put on the hat. I mean, as a general Democrat consultant, I mean, you've got to get him out. There's just no way in hell that he's able to pull it off if he's able to stay around. I mean, another debate, I agree with Boris. I mean, I don't know if there's enough meth in the world to get that guy to be attentive for a 90-minute debate and have it go well. I think you're just trying to avoid complete and total destruction. Selfishly, if I'm advising Gavin Newsom and I'm willing to take a selfish route, I think Gavin Newsom should be the first to come out and very vocally say it's time for Biden to step aside. And I think he should offer Kamala Harris so that he doesn't look, as if he's trying to jump the line and let her go crash and burn and accept that you're going to have 4 years of a Trump presidency, but position yourself to be, the seemingly obvious choice from 2028 because you're the one who, moved us on from Biden. You still paid your respects to Kamala Harris and didn't try to jump over her. So it's Gavin's turn. I think, from a strategic standpoint, that would make a lot of sense if you're in the Newsom camp. If you're in the Trump camp, I don't know if it's Sun Tzu, if your opponent's making a mistake, let him. I think that's the big thing right now. I mean, there's almost a certain, a new level of respect, kind of as I pointed to earlier, of how he's in this new pantheon of Americans, and is going to be viewed somewhat differently, not entirely differently, of course, by 40% of the country, but to that meaty middle, that 10% in the middle. This does kind of change how you look at him. And I think, staying back, staying quiet, he hasn't spoken since, publicly since the assassination attempt. And you just let Biden continue to run it in the ground, continue to gaffe, continue to reference the black guy, and make these what seem to be everyday errors at this point. A year ago, it seemed like it was maybe once a week. Now it's every single day.
Like calling Zelensky Putin, we almost forgot about
Oh
that
my
one.
gosh, thank you, Boris. Yeah, calling you,
And
ladies and
he said
please
Vice
welcome
President,
today's President Putin.
yeah, Vice President Trump or Kamala instead of Kamala.
It was so
Totally.
much.
Yeah, I mean that there is so much, but I think that's a key for Trump is like to stay silent, not only let Biden do the mistakes, but himself. When we all know when Trump opens his mouth, you never know what to expect. So if you say something that can bring Biden's back a little bit to the race,
I think
he should stay
maybe
silent. That's why he's doing it.
maybe for 28, as an advice to Democrats, their best bet might be whether it's Hakeem Jeffries or whoever is like, if they stay as the minority leader and they're able to actually push back on like what Trump is going to inevitably try to pass, maybe that would put whoever's the minority, again, assuming that they lose Congress or continue to lose Congress, would put whoever's the minority leader in the position to then run in 28. Like that might be a strong
Well, I think both parties, maybe that's one of the advantage of Trump winning is like he cannot run anymore. That it just like both parties need a soul search and really try to represent the people and stop with all the promotion about things that they don't really believe.
Oh yeah,
and
so
try
if
to
Biden loses, he can run in 28.
There you go.
well, that's the thing. But I think the Trump the movement is different than Trump the person. Like, and that's main thing. Trump the person, we all know, but the movement is like what represents and stuff like that. It should have go back to the Republican Party, not to Trump movement. Because there's a lot of
I think that's an interesting point, Hatem. I think, there's an interesting thing to be said about the vice presidential pick. I think, most reporting said it was narrowed down to three between Marco Rubio and then Burgum and JD Vance, right? I think, Burgum's kind of, a safe, neutral-ish pick that kind of soldiers things forward, not too much of a wave maker. Marco Rubio would kind of, towards, with Trump as a lame duck president, maybe remake the Republican Party in his image. JD Vance is very much a, carry the flag, continue the movement, very much a populist. So it does, you raise a good point that, with this VP pick, does that continue what the Republican Party looks like? And should he have picked someone else, would it have been more of a moving on from the Trump era of Republican politics?
Yeah, that's why I think Rubio would have been a great candidate because he have a lot to offer and he can be I think he's respected a little bit more from and he's gonna go back to the Republican Party. He cannot have, and that's what the Democrats have a problem with. They have a division within the division. You can have a Republican Party, MAGA inside, Trump inside. Has to be one value. That's what I think. But yeah. So Trump is gonna win. That's your prediction.
Absolutely. Trump's going to win. And, I think we're looking at potentially a landslide if things continue to move in the direction they're not able to replace Biden and pull the fire alarm here. You could be looking at
You think
320
he's going to
plus.
win all the swing states?
I think you're going to win the majority. I don't think you necessarily sweep in the Midwest. It's really tough to sweep those three. It rarely happens. I think that, I think you're going to see probably 320 plus electoral votes with potentially one straggler. But I mean, totally now in play is, states like New Hampshire, or Virginia are totally in play that weren't before, that open up the possibility for a total landslide victory for Trump.
What about your state?
Arizona, absolutely coming home. I mean, it is moved. Trump's up by like 6, 7 points consistently in the polls here. The Biden campaign has said that they've basically given up on Arizona. The Trump campaign just put out their list of swing target states about 3, 4 days ago, updated it, and has Arizona as their most likely to flip. So yeah, absolutely, Arizona's coming home for President Trump.
All right. Well, guys, thank you so much. Boris, any final thoughts?
No, like I said, I mean, I've resigned to the fact that Trump's probably getting reelected. You can catch me this Saturday at the Williams Center in Rutherford, New Jersey. My parents are gonna come to the show, Hatem.
Yay. All right, from Jersey. So, and Brady, thank you so much. If you want to follow you, where can they find you? On Twitter
Absolutely.
or
You can
whatever?
find me on Twitter at I am Brady Smith, Brady Smith on Twitter.
Excellent. This is Live from America podcast. Thank you guys so much. It was great to see you. Thank you. Next week.